Portions of the following program may have been pre-recorded.
The following program's views, claims, or ideas may not reflect those of WSRR Radio or StylesRebelRadio.com.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, early Happy New Year. This is Behind Enemy Lines, your Cleveland sports talk show from Pittsburgh, right here on WSRR Radio. I'm Lucas Durazio. I'm joined by Dom Farrow. We are recording on December 27th. This comes out on December 30th. Me and Dom just wrapped up some Christmas football games, including the Steelers and the Chiefs, the Ravens and the Texans. Both of them kind of duds of games, a little bit of sleepers. We'll talk about that today. College football playoff is in full swing. Round one of the college football playoff has just concluded. Had 4 home winners, all the 4 highest seeds. We'll get to talking about that a little bit today. Fantasy playoffs are in full swing. And the MVP race is heavily on. Both of the leaders in the MVP race are in the AFC, probably in Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Dom, we'll talk to you first. We want to talk about, like I said, Christmas Day games just wrapped up. Steelers played the Chiefs in the 1 o'clock window, and it wasn't too pretty, honestly. The Chiefs pretty much pulled away, and the Steelers are now on a 3-game skid, losing to the Ravens, the Eagles, and the Chiefs now. All 3 really good teams, obviously, 3 Super Bowl contenders. But, Dom, you were consistently saying that the Steelers were Super Bowl contenders leading up to this. Now 3 straight losses. How you feeling? Talk for the city of Pittsburgh about the Steelers.
Listen, I've seen this too many times. The Steelers collapse in December. It's been this way too many times in the past. I think 5 out of the past 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, the Steelers have lost 3 straight games in the month of December. It's just completely unacceptable, and the only variable that hasn't changed is Mike Tomlin. And I've been seeing a lot of people saying this week that Mike Tomlin is the most overrated coach in sports. I don't necessarily agree with that, but the collapses that have happened over the past years and just some other things that you see make you think that maybe Tomlin is the issue here. Just thinking about like coaching trees, and you hear how important that is. There is 0 coaches out of the Mike Tomlin coaching tree. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm not the type of guy who's going to be like, fire Mike Tomlin, do all this. I still think he's the guy. But once he gets that winning season wrapped up, things seem to change. The wins seem to change. And I went into this game thinking that the Steelers really had a chance. The prior week against the Ravens, going into that one, I didn't think the Steelers were going to win. This one, for some reason, I was delusional enough to think that they could beat the 1-loss Chiefs, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and they just were not on the same caliber as this team. And they haven't been on the same caliber as the Super Bowl teams or playoff teams that they've played the last 3 weeks. It's been unacceptable. It's been embarrassing. And I think things are starting to collapse, if I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah, I feel like on this show we've often been, as much as I hate the guy because of his success, I feel like we've backed Mike Tomlin most of the time, saying people who want him gone are pretty much delusional Steelers fans. But this week I heard from a Steeler fan, actually it was on the news. Someone that I played college football with was interviewed on the news, and he said, I'm not feeling too great. Tomlin got to his 9 wins, and that seems to be all he cares about. And I never really thought about it that way, but you're right. Once he hits that winning season, even once they get in the playoffs, I don't know if he just takes the foot off the gas or doesn't know how to keep guys moving forward. I mean, there is that kind of weaning back and saving for the playoffs, but at the same time, you see it a lot of times where like teams get a bye, and then because they haven't played in 2 weeks or their starters didn't play the week before that, or, they're just letting the foot off the gas a little bit, that they lose a lot of steam going into the playoffs. And I feel like maybe that could be a reason that the Steelers do that. Like they're taking off. All right, we clinched a playoff spot. We're feeling good. Another winning season for Tomlin, of course. And then they can't rev it back up when it's go time.
Yeah, I mean, part of me would agree with that, but the seeding matters so much. When you have an opportunity to get a number 1 seed, which I know after losing to the Eagles and Ravens, that really wasn't a possibility anymore, but it was there, and that's something to fight for. And just every seed matters in this AFC. it's a big difference between playing the Texans and playing the Bills. There's a huge difference there. You have to win the division. You have to get as high a seed as possible. So I don't think that's an excuse. I hope that that's not the mentality inside the room, that you can just, let's take it easy these next few weeks. Let's get in the playoffs and then let's unleash. I really hope that's not the case, because the outcomes, if that's the case, the outcomes have not been acceptable. 18 seasons, 18 winning seasons for Tomlin, but only playoff wins in 4 of those 18 seasons. Now, one of them was a Super Bowl winning season. Another one, they made the Super Bowl. But 4 out of 18 of just winning a playoff game in a year, I don't think. It's not as impressive as the 4 playoff wins in 18 seasons is way more detrimental than the 18 winning seasons. I don't care.
Now, the question being, I feel like always Steelers fans talk about, like, again, firing Tomlin, what would be the next step from there? The thing is, it's not like he's getting teams, though, that are juggernauts, and they're teams that coming into the season, people say, like, oh, if they don't win the Super Bowl, it's a blown season. This season, for instance, the last 2 seasons, I feel like, really since Ben retired, even Ben's last couple seasons, it was like, man, the Steelers are going to be, they're going to battle for wins because they have a good defense, but their offense isn't up to par, or guys are banged up on defense, things such and such. It's not like they are the Kansas City Chiefs or the Bills or, other teams that have these stacked rosters, and coming into the year, it's like, oh man, like, they're a super team. If they don't win 2 playoff games, it's a bust. People have recently been thinking the Steelers are 4 to 6 win teams and end up, of course, not having losing seasons. So does that, again, he's not really getting to the promised land, but at the same time, he's doing more than people expect him to.
I don't think that they're super teams that he's being handed, but I do think they're championship caliber teams. Maybe not with Kenny Pickett. Maybe that was never a possibility, but I do think this year it's a championship quality roster. And obviously there's still a lot to be said in this season. They're going to make the playoffs. Maybe they'll win. Maybe they'll win a few games. Is it really
a championship quality roster, though, Dom, compared to other teams?
Yeah, when I look at this roster, up and down, maybe outside of the wide receiver room, I do think it's
I was going to say, just caliber. The offense alone. They have a good offensive line. Their running backs are good, but don't get me wrong, they have a great run game. They have 2 really good running backs. They have a good offensive line. But in the NFL today, you have to pass the ball to win games. I'm sorry. And they have 1 very good receiver in George Pickens. They have a couple other guys who are just kind of role guys. And I don't think they have good enough quarterback play in Russell Wilson at this point in his career to make up for not having elite receivers.
Yeah, but I do think Russ has proven that he's a championship caliber quarterback. He's won
maybe
a Super Bowl.
In the past, but how old is he now? 36?
Yeah. Do you know who? There's this guy Stavros. He's a comedian and he does this Ronnie Raven things. Yeah. And so after the Ravens game, he was saying how Russ thought it was 2016. He thought that Obama was still in office when he, and then he got lit up. He fumbled. Everyone watching that knew that was happening. Russ he for some reason he thought that he was still young, and that was crucial in that game. But I do think that Russ, with his experience,
feeling like Mr. Unlimited. You can't blame him.
He really was Mr. Unlimited, and lately he's been a little bit limited. But I do think the experience matters a lot. I think Pat
in my opinion, you go through good teams. I do think Pat Freiermuth is good. I think Washington's a good second tight end. I think they have weapons. And again, I think they're really good for their run game too. But like in the NFL today, you have to throw the football. And you look at other top teams, not just in the AFC, but in the league, and either they have a really good elite top level quarterback like Josh Allen, and then they don't have super great receivers. The Bills receivers have been spotty. Keon Coleman's a good rookie. Amari Cooper really hasn't done anything since going there. Khalil Shakir's under the radar, pretty good guy. Good tight ends, but their quarterback can make up for that. The Ravens, they just have talent everywhere, but really not super great receivers. Zay Flowers is their number 1 receiver, and I think in a week or 2 ago you said you don't really think he's a number one receiver. You think he could be a great slot receiver, but maybe not a number one. But they have one of the best running backs in the league, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Chiefs, same thing, ton of speed, but no one really jumps off the page. Xavier Worthy, again, rookie. Juju Smith-Schuster, past his prime. Hollywood Brown has been in and out. D-Hop, past his prime. But, look in the backfield. They got the best quarterback of all time. Texans, I can keep going. They have a plethora of good receivers and a good quarterback. Maybe not as much experience, but the receivers can make up for it. Maybe not now because they've been hurt. But, again, I don't think that the Steelers roster right now is built to win a championship. And I think the fact that Tomlin over and over and over takes teams like that and still can never have a losing season shows a good coaching, good organization, and maybe it's a front office problem, and they're not getting the right guys for him.
Maybe it was for a little bit, but they've switched GMs. They've turned things around in this season. I really genuinely think that this roster is championship caliber. I know that, quarterback's the most important position in football, and we may have talked about this on a prior episode, but is the era dead where you can win a Super Bowl with a bad quarterback? Or even make a Super Bowl?
I mentioned it last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, but talking about, is there going to be a renaissance of maybe lesser quarterbacks winning teams because they have great defense and great skills? And again, then you can go to the other example. I mentioned teams that all have just so receiving cores, but have a great quarterback. You can go look at the Lions, who are the opposite. Jared Goff, even though I do have to take back a statement that I made the other day. I said he wasn't elite and wasn't great. He is second in the league in yards this year. But again, and I love Jared Goff. Again, I definitely love him, but arm talent and athletic talent maybe isn't elite level. But they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, two of the best receivers in the league, two of the most dynamic guys, two great running backs, a really good receiving tight end in Laporta, and a good defense. Vikings, Sam Darnold, even though people are sleeping on him, he's played great. He's playing out of his mind this year. He's playing the best football of his career. But even if it's just because he has these guys, he's still playing really good. But he has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, who's another really good young receiver. They got TJ Hawkinson. They have a good back who people thought was past his prime, but is still doing it what's his name? Oh, I can't think of his name now. Packers Jones. Running back. Aaron Jones. I knew it was an AJ. I was going to say AJ Dillon, but that's not right. He used to play with AJ Dillon. But I don't think the Steelers have the elite quarterback, and I don't think they have the elite talent around him to make it work.
George Pickens is arguably a top 10 receiver in the NFL right now.
Arguably, but he's got way too much going on. Physically, maybe, but he clearly can't hold it together. And down the stretch, he's not going to be a guy who can take these losses and not make it about him, and then they go into the playoffs on a 5-game losing streak maybe, or 4, whatever it is, and be okay with it, because he clearly is a me guy. He's going to be whining about every call. So how much turmoil is that going to cause in the locker room? I think that alone knocks him out of that top 10 for them moving forward in this season.
Yeah. And I was going to even say that George Pickens is arguably a top 5 receiver, but then you said Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that if you just took them physically and you just look at what they do on a football field, I think I would take George Pickens over Amon-Ra St. Brown. But if I take everything into consideration, it's Amon-Ra Brown 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a offense that draws him up with a lot better stuff. He's with a lot better talent around him, and I think his quarterback's better.
Well, and just that he's in such a much better mental state than Pickens.
Oh, yeah, that as well, yeah. I think he's more of a plug-and-play guy where he would go in and be a culture in the locker room.
Yeah, whereas he's always going to be on. Pickens, you never know what version of him you're going to get.
He doesn't have the level. He can't stay level like some of these veteran guys can. That I mentioned. And, they're guys that have been around and have seen it. And I think that even if they haven't won at the highest level or, have had a ton of experience, guys like that are going to be super valuable for your team, especially in a playoff push. Bringing up younger guys around them, keeping a team together. Playing 20-plus games is not easy. to keep your head and keep your team together and keep the coaches on the right track and keep everyone in the building. There's over 100 guys in the building, all coaching and playing. You got to keep guys who can keep those heads together and keep it like-minded vision for your future. We have like-minded vision for our future here at Behind Enemy Lines, and the vision for our future is going to break right now. But when we come back, we'll have more talk. 216-859-8699. Let us know what you think about the Steelers this year in the AFC playoff race.
Booting up the PC and seeing nothing but political news, Syrian bombings, and natural disasters? Fear not. WSRRradio.com is your home for alternate media. Stories about how much wood is too much wood. 10 times MF Doom proved he's a master of the English language. And that time I got gonorrhea from skydiving.
Welcome back to Behind Enemy Lines, your Cleveland sports show from Pittsburgh, right here on WSRR Radio. A proud supporter of WSRR Radio is GenericClothes.com. Nobody cares about the details. Get to the point at GenericClothes.com. Don't sell out to the big brand clothing empires and their prices. Make a statement at their expense with GenericClothes.com. Dom, I do that read every week, and I feel like don't sell out to the big brand clothing empires gets me every time. I feel like I've stumbled over that a couple of times.
It's a little tongue twister. They got in there.
I feel like tongue twisters are dying. People aren't coming up with new tongue twisters anymore. Like Sally sells seashells down by the seashore. That's a tough one.
There are a lot of things they just stopped trying with.
Yeah,
they
right.
Just stopped
riddles.
Being creative.
You don't hear any
words.
riddles anymore.
Yeah, I mean you got to get a popsicle to see one of those nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that. I think that's probably what is keeping popsicle alive.
I'm not a big riddle guy. That my brain just doesn't work in that way. I don't think.
I will say there was one my senior year of college football, the year that I had to sit out and redshirted because I tore my ACL in the spring prior. We would always go. All the injured guys would go with our strength and conditioning coach off to the side during practice because you couldn't really do anything in practice, obviously. And we would do workouts like just doing like curls and shoulder stuff, a bunch of workouts on the side with bars, old rusty bars that were in the shed. And we're just standing around like doing curls and doing whatever. And I was doing this every day for 10 weeks and even more because of, fall camp. And me and the strength and conditioning coach would come up with riddles and like old riddles that we've heard before. And we would just tell them. And there was a couple other guys who were out for the year, so they were there every day, and they'd be like, oh, you should tell them this one. But there were other guys who were like, oh, I pulled my hamstring, so I'm out for the week, but I'll be back next week. So there would be new guys that would join the group every once in a while. So then it was like, oh, all right, we got to try the riddle on the new guy. Let's see if he gets it. On the new hurt guy. So that was what we did on the IR at Duquesne University. You want a quick one or no?
Yeah. Yes.
We have the Rizzler. This one's a quick one.
The Rizzler and the Riddler.
Yeah, that's right. I wish I was the Rizzler, but I'm just the Riddler. So this one I actually heard from Family Guy. What gets wetter as it dries?
Okay.
You got it? What gets
No.
wetter as it dries? A towel. You like that one?
How?
The towel gets wet, but it dries you. It's
That's a
getting
good
wetter while it dries you. It itself isn't drying, but it's drying something else.
That's
Doing
a good
the
one.
act of drying. You like
the Riddler.
that?
The Riddler.
That's right.
Riddler and the Sizzler.
If you want to hear a weekly riddle, because I got a ton of them, text us at 216-859-8699, or you can join our Discord page, and maybe I'll give out a riddle each week and wait for people to answer it on the Discord. That would be spectacular.
I got one for him. We'll leave the listeners with this. Johnny's dad has 4 kids.
Oh my God.
North.
We've all heard
East,
this one.
and
You've said
South.
it on the show like 3 times.
What is his 4th kid's name? Now we'll let you ponder that. Make sure you call that number and let us know what the answer is if you think you got the brains. All right.
216-859-8699. This is Behind Enemy Lines. We're here to talk about sports because that's what we do. We talk about sports, right, Dom? We love sports.
And we speak in riddles.
And we
What
speak in riddles.
team?
We love sports and we love riddles.
I got a little riddle for you. What team performed one of the weakest out of the playoffs and got the best schedule available?
Who you mean in the regular season performed the weakest?
Out of the college football playoff teams and got the easiest bracket.
Your attempt to segue into the college football playoff, which we had to talk about in this segment. So, Dom, you mentioned it. Someone did not play really that great, did not really prove themselves that much all year, had a weak schedule, and yet pretty much have a cakewalk to the college football playoff semifinal, no?
Mm-hmm. That's right. And we're talking about the Penn State Nittany Lions taking on SMU in that first week, whooping them in a 38-10 noon kickoff for a whiteout game at Beaver Stadium. I hate that. As much as I hate Penn State, you love seeing a great atmosphere in sports. That should have been a night game. But regardless, they win 38-10, and next week they get to take on Boise State, who was the number 9 seed, but got that first round bye. But Penn State's 11-point favorites in this one. 11-point favorites when they were one of the last teams to sneak into the playoffs. Just make it make sense. How did they get such an easy path? Well, you've got Ohio State and Oregon this week, which is going to be a battle. That Oregon or Ohio State should have been playing Penn State. Boise State should have been playing like Notre Dame or Arizona State. Well, I guess Arizona State wouldn't have been possible, but I just hate seeing Penn State get this easy run to the championship. But next week's gonna be interesting. They'll take on either Ohio State or Oregon. I really hope one of those teams pull out here because I hate seeing Penn State win.
Yeah, I don't think that Penn State has a chance. They've played both of those teams now in the year, and they lost to both of them. I think that Penn State, I said it a lot this year, they didn't really do much to prove themselves. They lost 2 games, and they were to Ohio State and Oregon, and those were the only 2 games that were really of any interest. I kind of would like to see them play someone like Indiana, just because it's another Big Ten school that they didn't get to play, so now you can get the best from the Big Ten. I don't think that they deserve to have this easy of a path. Now, at the same time, the alternates were Ohio State getting that path, who lost 2 games to Oregon, but then to Michigan, obviously a huge blemish. We can talk about Ohio State a little bit later. But Notre Dame, who also kind of had an easy one against Indiana, another unproven team, but now has to play Georgia. Or Texas maybe, but Texas also got a pretty easy matchup. But I would say that Arizona State, at least they're a Power 4 school, right? Basically, yeah. Penn State had to play 2 group of 5 teams 2 weeks in a row. And SMU, who it's their first year in the ACC, and Boise State, who's the only team that isn't a group of 4 now, team that's in this playoff.
Mm-hmm.
They got a cakewalk. They lost their backup quarterback to the portal, Bo Perbula. That's your man out of York, right, Dom? Signed to Missouri.
That's
How
right.
do you feel about that? Are you going to be watching Missouri games now?
No. I mean, I didn't really watch Penn State games in general. I saw they gave him the bag, so good for him. I mean, the buddy's set for life if he invests it well. But yeah, I won't be watching Missouri football. They're kind of a weak SEC team, but I wish him the best in his future. Were you surprised to see Drew Lahr returning next year?
No, not at all. I don't know why anyone would be surprised. The only reason that he maybe would have gone out, are you trying to say in the transfer portal or the NFL draft?
To the NFL.
I was going to say he wouldn't transfer. There's no reason for him to transfer. And there's no reason for him to go to the NFL draft, because the only reason that he would have to go to the NFL draft is because it's a pretty weak quarterback draft. And even though it's a pretty weak quarterback draft, I still think he's a 4th round pick, even in this quarterback draft. I mean, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, even Will Howard, like those are 4. And then I know there's more names that are out in this year that if you better than him that I would take before him.
But if you know that you're going to be a 4th round pick, that's a lot better than risking it next year. And what happens if you have a career-ending injury?
That is true, but at the same time, especially with NIL, people keep talking about like, oh man, people might lose money going to the NFL. I'm sure he's getting paid over $1 million right now to play at Penn State.
Yeah.
And how much would he get paid as a 4th-round pick on his rookie contract?
Well, I heard they paid this kid who transferred. I heard they paid him $1.5 million, Missouri, and so
Beulah?
yeah, and so if they're paying him 1.5, well, you don't think there's anybody at Penn State or a lot of people at Penn State who would be able to raise more money than that to keep him there? Just wait one more year.
No, because I think they would rather have Drew Allar.
I guess.
I think that in the long run,
think there's enough
Allar
money to go
probably
around now?
loses. I think in the long run, Allar probably loses money if he goes to the draft now, because I think going to the NFL, going back to Penn State extends his career, because if he goes into the NFL this year and gets drafted on a 4th round rookie contract, he's out of the league in 4 years, most likely, right?
That's a good point.
If he goes back to the Penn State and still goes into the draft next year and is a 4th or 5th round pick, he still has the same contract, but he's in it for another year. So he's extending his entire football career, basically, which extends how long he's getting a paycheck from football. I think it's a smart move on his part, just because I don't think he would excel at the next level yet. I mean, maybe he'll make a jump next year, but I think it's a smart move from him, and I don't think it's surprising at all.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, because teams are much more willing to commit to you for a longer period of time if you're a 2nd-round pick, 1st-round pick, compared to 4th, 5th, 7th. But I haven't seen enough out of the guy to make me think that he's improving enough where his stock's going to jump up that much next year. I mean, he had more touchdowns last year, less interceptions last year. I just don't know what he's going to do that's going to really change the trajectory, but who knows? Maybe he'll be able to pull it out.
I don't think his trajectory will change very much. I think I wouldn't doubt that he's still, because I mean, look at them next year. They're going to have a very similar schedule. I think they're still going to be a 10-11 win team in the regular season. Because again, they'll probably only play Ohio State. I don't know exactly what their schedule is, but at the end of the day, if you dodge Oregon or Michigan in most years, but this year, they were pretty down except for against Ohio State. Maybe Washington, maybe USC. Like, you can dodge some good teams. There's only a handful of like really, really good teams in the Big Ten that Penn State shouldn't beat just by showing up.
I think it might catch up to them, though, this Big Ten expansion. I think it's a lot easier to convince big-time recruits to come to sunny Los Angeles than it is to come to the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania.
It is true. It's a very tradition program. You'll have to get the right guys in there and not guys that are chasing the glitz and glamour, but rather, traditional
football guys.
Schools like this. Yeah. It will be interesting. I mean, I think that's another thing that's changing about college football is the people that are entering it and what they're searching for. I think that program tradition in a way is dying a little bit because of NIL, and guys are chasing money rather than going to a traditional school. Dom, you mentioned earlier that you don't like the seeding. I think there's a lot of people complaining about the 12-team playoff, that all 4 games in the first round, the higher seed won, the home team won. They were kind of somewhat all blowouts. There was a ton of complaining about it. What do you think about the current state? Do you think it's better or worse than it was with the college playoff? I think, personally, I'd say it's better because these teams are getting blown out. At least it's for something. It's still 4 games that we wanted to watch instead of 4 bowl games that people are sitting out of because they're just going into the draft. And at least these games mean something, excuse me, rather than, just having a pointless game.
Yeah, I mean, I'd much rather watch Ohio State destroy Tennessee 42-17 than I'd watch Penn State playing for 6 hours against Toledo in the, I forget what the bowl name was. It was like the Game of
Quick Lane Bowl?
Something ridiculous.
No, that's right. They changed it now. The one that was in Detroit used to be the Quick Lane Bowl, and Pitt did play in it before. I know that for sure. And they played against a MAC school as well. But They did change it. It was like game above sport or something like that.
Yes, that's exactly right. Game above sports bowl. I'd much rather watch that blowout than watch the 6 overtime game that took all day when you're watching 2 7-5 teams face off. I think it's ridiculous. I think people are always looking for something to complain about. But I do think that the people who make the brackets, make the seedings, they need to forget about people's opinions. They need to forget about numbers. They know what the best football teams in college are. They knew that Alabama was more deserving. They knew that they were a better team than SMU was. But because people make a big deal every year about these things need to be consistent, these things need to make sense, we end up with this, where if Alabama played Penn State, it would be a much better game. They need to just focus on the best teams in college football. Yes, Alabama had some really bad losses, but they are a better team than SMU was.
I think there's an argument for that, but at the same time, I do think that college football is almost more about earning it than who's actually better. Because I think it's like who earned to be in that spot, SMU or Alabama? SMU did, but who actually is better? Probably Alabama, but Alabama lost 3 games. Like, you could just do the classic SEC fan where the SEC is undefeated in hypothetical games. You can see that all over Twitter. But like SMU at least earned it. Like if you look at it that way, where it's like, oh, well, it was the best team. It's like, well, then we're just gonna rest our best team guys, because at the end of the day, we can be like, well, we're better than the 12 seed, but we lost 4 games, but we're better. We just didn't play up to our potential. It's like, well, that's what football is playing up to your potential. That's why the games are played. You know what I mean? It's not just, hey, whoever was first in the rankings this year before the season, they won the national championship. The rankings have never granted a national championship. You have to play the game. So I think I understand it. Like, yeah, maybe Alabama would have had a better chance at Penn State, but they didn't earn it. SMU found a way to earn it.
What about like UCF when they went undefeated? They earned a shot at a national title. Florida State deserved an opportunity in the playoffs. It just matters about who you beat and the schedule that you have. Alabama beat some really good teams this year. Yeah, they lost bad games. They lost to Vanderbilt 40-35, rough one. But the week before that, they beat Georgia. Like pretty much undisputably a top 3 team the last 5 years, and that has to mean something. I don't care that you lose to Oklahoma. It doesn't matter to me. When you're beating SEC teams, when you're shutting SEC teams out, I think it should mean something. SMU's schedule and Alabama's schedule are not comparable.
Mean nothing though? Because the losses obviously need to mean something, or else you have guys who aren't playing for every win in the regular season. I think that's more what college football is about too. Is like you have to earn it. You have to get your spot. I understand, like whatever. Now you brought up UCF. And Florida State last year, but like that's why the playoff expanded, because to give more teams those chances, because it is like, well, Florida State may have earned it and like deserved to be there, but at the same time, you wanted the best. So now I think you're getting the best of both worlds, like Ohio State getting in. Like honestly, I thought Ohio State should have been out after they lost to Michigan. But they're still probably better than Ole Miss. But they're, you know what I mean? They didn't earn it maybe, but they're a better team. But Ole Miss didn't earn it enough. It is kind of a back and forth.
Yeah, you'll drive yourself crazy. You'll drive yourself crazy if you try to think about the logistics and who deserves it more than who. I think things need to have weight. When you beat a team like Georgia, that needs to have some weight. When SMU loses to BYU, I know it's week 1 and it's a different team, but that needs to mean something. Alabama losing to Oklahoma is way less of a black eye than SMU losing to BYU is, in my opinion.
I think there almost needs to be a point system. Where, at the end of the year, you can look at someone's schedule and go back and have a strength of schedule point system to where, all right, Alabama lost to, Vanderbilt, so that's minus so many points or whatever, but they beat this team, And Georgia is a top team in the SEC. They won the SEC championship. But, Alabama beat them. So now Alabama should get an extra amount of points for that or whatever.
Yeah.
You need to quantify wins almost so that everyone isn't pissed off, and that there needs to be a way to show it.
I think that's what the BCS did. And I think they did a good job of that. I don't remember when the BCS was around.
The BCS was more about votes. People were voting, and that's how people got points, I believe. I don't know if it was actually based off of schedule.
But
it was almost more opinion based.
That definitely played a factor, and I think that's important. But I also think I remember in the BCS era where teams would run up the score on other teams because that would maybe, help them narrow down
boost
to
their
two
chances
teams.
Of getting in. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think that if they don't do something to quantify it and make people have facts to look at of why such and such X team deserves to be in over Y team, people are just going to keep, fighting until they're blue in the face about it, the way that we have these last 20 minutes. This is Behind Enemy Lines, 216-859-8699. Call in, leave us a voicemail where you talk until you're blue in the face, arguing about the college football playoff. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Melissa.
And hey, it's Matt.
Coming at you from Synergy Music Studio.
We are a recording and production studio located on the south side near Chicago.
Check us out online at synergymusicstudio.com. We offer recording, mixing, and mastering.
And follow us on Instagram at Synergy Music Studio. Rock hard.
216-859-8699 is the number to call or text in. This is Behind Enemy Lines. Thank you for sticking with us. We are in our final 15-minute segment, which is brought to you by Hellbender Vinyl. Hellbender is Pittsburgh's first and only custom vinyl record pressing plant. It is one of America's most trusted record pressing plants, and it is perfect for local or independent artists, just like the ones that we play here at WSRR, who want to make their album release and take it to the next level. Don't settle for a bunch of ones and zeros floating around the internet. Have a physical album release with Hellbender Vinyl. Check them out at hellbendervinyl.com. Dom, it is a huge week in the fantasy football landscape. For a lot of people, actually, their fantasy football season ended. A lot of people had their championship in week 16. Week 15 and 16 was their playoffs. Us, week 16 and 17. It's a battle because you got to get guys that aren't on the IR, guys who are playing for something. You really got to make your roster around that. And Manu Ginobili, my fantasy football team, my dynasty league, third year now of this dynasty league, started off 0-4. I've talked about it a lot on here. We battled. We made the playoffs, and it looked bleak. We were playing the number 1 seed, the returning champion from last year. He was 13-2 coming into the playoffs. The last 2 weeks of the regular season, he scored 200 points in both of those weeks.
Whoa.
Never been done in league history before. No one's ever scored 200 points 1 week, let alone 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
In our fantasy league. Going up against me, the final seed, the last guy in. We come out with a huge victory. He only had 140 points, I think. We outscored him. Our receivers showed up. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Devontae Adams, T. Higgins. Everyone was showing up. Everyone scored a touchdown. Even Kareem Hunt scored one for me.
That's
so I'm
huge.
on to the finals, the championship round, and I'm worried. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not feeling too nicey right now, Dom.
Looking for that elusive trophy, huh?
That's right, the elusive trophy. I'm the only participant in the league to make it all 3 years in the playoffs. I've been in the championship 2 out of 3 years. And just like Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, at the beginning of every year, people counted me out. They didn't think that I could win more than 6 games. They didn't think that I could get in the playoffs.
They saw Davis Mills. They saw Davis Mills on that roster, and they doubted.
That's right. Davis Mills is the heart and soul of Manu Ginobili. He's on the taxi squad. Just because I can't get rid of him, he has to still be on the team in some way.
Is he on a roster anywhere? Is he still on the Texans?
He's with the Texans. He got a couple snaps this week on Christmas Day.
I didn't see that. What happened to
That's
what?
right.
Just because they were getting destroyed, they put him in?
CJ Stroud, I think he like twisted his ankle or something at the end of the first half, and Davis Mills
Oh.
came in and handed the ball off.
Yeah, I stopped watching after the Steelers got their ass handed to them.
Yeah, well, the Steelers game was a big in my fantasy playoff because my two running backs for the season, David Montgomery and J.K. Dobbins, both on the IR. Kareem Hunt came in. I traded for him late in the season, traded a third-round pick for him, scored a touchdown in that playoff game, played on Christmas Day, scored another touchdown. Not a huge stat line, but the touchdown keeps you in it.
It goes a long way. That 6
Didn't
goes
know
a
who to
long
play.
way.
That's right. It really does. I didn't know who to play for my second running back. I played Justice Hill the week prior. He got 3 points, just enough, just what I needed. Was out by the halftime, and was still out for this Christmas Day game. So what I said was, I got to sign someone. The guys on my bench are really bad. I need to sign someone. I'm looking over and I'm feeling the magic of Christmas, Tom. And I was like, I'm going to be watching these games. I want someone to watch. Cordero Patterson is in the free agents. Let's pick him up and put him in the starting lineup. Our rosters are really deep. So, like, there's no one on the waiver wire. Picked up Cordero Patterson on Wednesday morning, Christmas morning at about 11 o'clock. He was playing 2 hours later. He got me 0.2 points. He scored a touchdown the week before. It was late in the season. You got to lean on those old guys, those veterans.
Thought
maybe
he
he'd
had some
do something
magic
for
left
me.
in him, huh? Nope.
0.2 points. Nothing. Really hurt me.
That's not good. It's not great.
It's really not. So not a great start to the fantasy championship for me. But we're battling. We got all our receivers. We got Joe Burrow, Drake May. They're going to show up. Joe Burrow's still playing for something. He's going to be throwing to T. Higgins a lot this week, who I also have, because they can still fight for a playoff spot. So that's really what I'm banking on. The Bengals believing that they can get a playoff spot.
They're going to have to
Joe Burrow
believe.
throwing for 10 touchdowns.
All to T. Higgins.
Now, the one thing that I do have going for me, I'm playing against Kyle. Shout out to Kyle. Huge supporter of the league, of the show. We love Kyle. He's a good man. His second quarterback, actually his first quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts out with a concussion this week. Kenny Pickett is prepared to get the start in Philadelphia. So he's now taking Brock Purdy from his super flex and starting him at quarterback. Instead of putting another quarterback in at the super flex, he's playing Aaron Jones, not a quarterback. So I feel like that leans in my favor just a little bit. I think that helps me, no?
I think so. I think you got the advantage in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like quarterbacks are the way to go. We've learned that in two quarterback leagues, you need a quarterback. You need good quarterback play. So him going to Aaron Jones, even over a guy like Mason Rudolph, who's on his bench, who's probably going to get the start in Tennessee. He's got a couple other guys who are going to start this week, but like don't jump off the page, obviously. But instead, starting Aaron Jones. So that is my one silver lining. I'm holding out and praying that something good comes from that.
That always helps. Quarterbacks are usually guaranteed to get you points. You never know.
That's right.
You
And his
really
other
never know what
quarterback
can
is
happen.
Brock Purdy, who they're not playing for anything. They're out of the playoff race.
Yeah,
They might as well sit him.
that's true. They might. I wouldn't
He
be
could take one
surprised.
big hit in the first quarter and just say, I'm done.
Yeah, they have
all we
nothing to
need.
fight for. You got guys on your team who are fighting, who are putting it on
That's
the line
right.
for you. So I think you've got their back. You just need to have theirs and trust the process.
Whether or not we have the statistical advantage, I think our team's got more heart. And I think that down the line, that plays out. And I think that people cash in on that. We can get behind this team and maybe get a fantasy championship. That's my goal. That's my Christmas wish for this year, is to be a fantasy football champion. Dom, how was your Christmas other than the Steelers losing?
Other than that,
in
it was
dramatic fashion.
pretty good. Santa treated me well, so yeah, it was a nice Christmas. We were eating good. Yeah, I mean the Steelers really put a damper. I don't even know what the word is. Damper, is that a word?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it put a damper on the whole event, the whole season. But regardless, it was still a great holiday. It's the best time of the year. Looking forward to this new year, especially with our great and loyal listeners to this program on WSR Radio. So thank you for listening to us, and we wish you the best in this upcoming year.
Yes, that's right. 2025 is going to be the year of Behind Enemy Lines. Dom, you mentioned eating good on Christmas. I figured out this holiday season my hack to eating turkey. Usually my family doesn't have turkey or at Christmas. We do it Thanksgiving, of course, but my fiance's family had turkey this year at Christmas dinner. I figured out that, turkey's too dry. That's your common complaint. People put gravy on it a lot of times. That helps. I figured out my hack is putting cranberry sauce on the turkey.
Yes.
Now
you're talking.
I've never been a cranberry sauce supporter. I never knew what it was there for. I never had it until this Thanksgiving, really. I never really used it. I was like, why is anyone eating Jell-O? It looks like Jell-O out of the can.
See, I don't
you
love
scrape a little
that.
bit of that off, and you slap it on the turkey with some gravy over it. Oh,
yeah.
It's like you get the salty, the sweet. It's great.
Now you're talking. Yeah, I've always been on that wave. I'm not a huge fan of like the jelly type of cranberry sauce. I'm more like the actual sauce type thing. But,
I like that too.
But yeah, get a little bit of the cranberry, a little bit of mashed potato, and the turkey. I mean, that is the perfect bite right there.
Maybe some stuffing.
Maybe a little bit of stuffing if you're feeling crazy. But yeah, turkey by itself is not very good.
No, it really isn't. It's almost undoable. I had a leftover sandwich today on a roll, a little bit of turkey, some stuffing with gravy on it, and then some cheesy potatoes over that. Didn't have any cranberry sauce though, and I was yearning for it. I needed that little bit of sweetness. It would have tied it all together. See, I'm a sweet tooth guy. Like I put jelly on my breakfast sandwich. Like I like the sweetness that goes with the salty and the savory. Mm-hmm. So the cranberry sauce is just like it just made sense. It was sitting there the whole time. Like why in my 25 years of living have I never put this together?
There are a lot of cranberry sauce haters. And I think once you try the cranberry, there's no going back. Once you know what that's like, once you know what that combo is really all about.
I'm fully on the wave. Yeah.
And now you'll never go back. You'll do that until the day you die.
See, in my child brain, every dish at Thanksgiving was separate. Like you have your green bean casserole, your corn casserole, your turkey, your stuffing, your mashed potatoes, your gravy. Like they're all separate. Like now that I'm an adult and like my brain has developed, I'm like before I was like, why would anyone just eat cranberry sauce? No, it's a dressing. You put it over the turkey. It's a mixture. That's the beauty of Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner is the meshing of the casseroles and the turkey and the sauces and the dressing, the Jell-O-y cranberry stuff and the gravy.
Yep.
That's where culinary masterpiece comes in. That's right.
Combination.
You get a mix and match.
Combination.
There's so many permutations of different things that are on your plate that you can mix together. What makes the Thanksgiving and Christmas meal so beautiful, in my opinion.
That's what makes the holidays so special, if you ask me.
It is. It is.
You
not only family coming together, but food coming together for a combination.
Are you a Christmas film type of guy?
Christmas film?
Yeah. Do you like watching those?
Christmas movies, you mean?
Yeah. Christmas films, Christmas movies.
Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't know if you meant like a film session. I like watching football film. Sorry. My apologies. I'm a film fanatic when it comes to Christmas.
Gotcha. I'm really not. There's only a handful that I'll watch. I think The Polar Express is unwatchable. I think that's one of the worst movies ever made.
Oh no, you're hating. That's good.
I think Elf is one of the greatest Christmas movies ever made.
Elf is good.
A Wonderful Life.
Elf's a timeless classic.
A Wonderful Life.
One of the best movies ever, in my opinion.
That's what I was just about to say. It's probably the best Christmas movie, but it's also possibly the greatest American film of all time. It is beautiful. It makes me cry every single year. It makes me cry when I think about it sometimes. It's a beautiful film, and it's really, really touching. And if you haven't seen it, it's black and white, and I know some of you TikTok heads out there, you refuse to watch movies before the year 2012, but if you haven't seen that one, check it out. It will really make you think about your life and think about the meaning of Christmas, the meaning of why we're all here, and Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. Just had to get that off my chest
Yeah,
before we wrapped up
I could
here.
watch that every single year at Christmas, and the two Home Alones. I could watch every single year, never get sick of them. Timeless classics. Obviously, two completely different types of movies, but love them both to my core. This has been Behind Enemy Lines. Thank you guys for listening to us. Hope you had a great Christmas. Hope you're going to have a happy new year. Everyone stay safe out there. I've been Lucas Razio. I've been with Dom Farrow.
Peace.
The preceding program is a StylesRebelRadio.com production.